Season 4 of Ninjala, honestly, it's a bit wacky. The opening season video was awkward, but not entirely unliked, and the two new Shinobi cards have absolutely changed the face of the game a bit in terms of the meta. And, well, the new weapons are honestly just as crazy and deadly, just like little Lucy. But, of course, they are the weapons that Lucy was depicted with upon the game's release. So let's dive right in and talk about the newest weapon class in Ninjala, the Scrap Katanas. Hello ladies and gentlemen and all the core gamers out there, CAJ-Man 777 here, one of your gung-ho ambassadors for Ninjala, here to bring you yet another weapon guide that will surely teach you something new about a weapon class you may have never tried in Ninjala. As always, this is an installment number 5 of my weapon guide series, and today we're going to be talking about the weapon that tells your opponent to stop and listen to the music as you smack them into an ippon, the Scrap Katanas. So, of course, if you are enjoying these guides and want to see more of them, do me a huge favor and hit that like button, as well as also hitting that subscribe button, as this channel this year tries to reach 5,000 subscribers. And with that out of the way, let's jump right in and talk about the kits of the Scrap Katanas. As always, this is, of course, an in-depth discussion regarding everything these Scrap Katanas have to offer. From the weapon kits themselves to the combos, I will be showing off everything these weapons have and, of course, can do. As always, compared to my previous guides, some of the information may be the same compared to them, so if you don't want to listen to me repeat myself from guide to guide, you can just head to the next section of the video where you might want to learn the new information, because I will be going over everything, as I said, that these weapons have to offer. So let's get started by talking about the first weapon, the Scrap Saber. Of course, the Scrap Saber, as I already stated, is the weapon that little Lucy has been depicted holding in Ninjala ever since the game's release. Lucy, for those who don't know, is basically able to control metal at free will with her Sharingan-like eye hidden underneath her eye patch, and honestly, I'm kind of glad she keeps that eye hidden, because I would not want to get hit with this. Look at this weapon. The weapon itself is already telling you to stop or face the consequences, which is insulting enough, but in the hands of Lucy, who can control metal, imagine how much scarier that is. I mean, look at her render holding the weapon. Does that look like the face of mercy? Sorry, I might have gotten a little bit sidetracked there. But let's get back on topic, because I know, of course, you all want to hear about the weapon itself. So with that being said, once again, we are on the weapon selection screen, and as you can see, the Scrap Saber is just below the first row of katana class-like weapons, as they are considered them. So as per usual, we're going to be highlighting over the Scrap Saber and hitting the plus button so we can, of course, bring up the weapon's details. And of course, as always, when I immediately bring up the weapon details, the first thing we want to look at, of course, is the weapon parameters, which determine the weapon's overall health and base movement speed. As we can see at the bottom left of the screen here, it is the game standard for the Scrap Saber, 300, 100, which is on all katana type class weapons that are currently in the game. With this nice balance, some players will get used to this weapon type faster, as they have a decent longevity in battles, and of course the movement speed to escape close encounters if need be. The one thing I will mention, though, is that unlike other katana types in Ninjala, this Scrap Katana, class could be considered your heavy katana variant. What do I mean by heavy katana variant? Well, usually weapons that are of the heavy variety or heavy variant only have one moveset placed on them, which means their animations between attacks not only are a bit slower, but the animations themselves don't change based on a normal input, a left-right input, or a down input, meaning combo routes for these weapons are pretty much fixed. But we'll be talking about that a bit later, of course, in the combo section of the video. Moving, of course, on from that, we have the gum kit, and this time around, we have a gum kit that, none of us have really seen yet, or some people aren't super familiar with, because this gum shot was introduced into last season with the new weapon class, and of course the ninjutsu was just introduced on this weapon for this season. So let's take a look at them. Starting straight away, of course, with the Gum Shoot Gum Laser. Gum Laser is a fixed distance projectile that can spawn up to 3 lasers simultaneously based on your ninja gum bubble size. It shoots long straight beams of gum forward that cover not only quite a bit of range, but they almost come out instantly when used, making it the longest ranging and fastest fixed distance projectile currently in the game. I'd argue that it is the fastest gumshoot in the game, though, as well, mainly because it almost seems like it comes out frame 1. Not only that, but of course the gum lasers themselves are good at outright stopping other gumshoots in their tracks from penetrating the lasers on top of that. And to add to the scariness of the laser as well, these lasers also have an active hitbox while on the field, meaning that players who walk into the lasers have a potential to not only be hit by them, but also bound by them as well. Unfortunately, though, because of all these benefits, the gum laser does indeed have some downsides. The first downside is that the laser itself has to be manually aimed, and because its hitbox goes dead straight from the launch point, it takes quite a bit of practice to get the aim down on it. On top of that, the hitbox on the gum lasers are also extremely narrow when fired, meaning you actually have to be hit by the beam itself in order to take damage. However, because the gum laser does have multiple beams, each individual laser is its own hitbox, meaning you can stagger an opponent with one laser and knock them into another laser for a potential bind, which is kind of a benefit compared to a downside, but you do have to be strategic in using that. However, it is because of this fact that the gum laser is probably one of the most, if not the most powerful base gum shot in the game, without the use of Shinobi cards. Unfortunately, you're not going to be getting the same benefit out of the small bubble laser, which only spawns one laser. It takes 2 lasers to bind an opponent, and it takes 3 lasers to get an insta-bind on your opponent. So try and always go for that double medium-sized laser, because if you do hit both at the same time, you will also bind your opponent. Because it's so powerful, though, that brings me to another downside of the gum laser. The gum laser has the shortest lasting bind on any opponent. That's right, despite the gum laser's massive range, it doesn't bind your opponents for nearly as long as any other gum shoots in the game, meaning that if you want that E-pone, you'll have to be even more strategic with its use and where you place it. I would say it's definitely not a gum shoot for beginners, so I'd recommend practicing with the other manually aimed gum shots like Grenade Net and Searcher, which actually not so much Searcher anymore because it got homing, before moving, of course, onto gum laser. Onto our gum ninjutsu now. This ninjutsu is a brand new ninjutsu that just got added this season, and it is simply known as Shinobi Disco. And I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. This ninjutsu sucks. It just absolutely sucks. You know, back in my surfboard guide, how I thought Potent Poison was just awful? Well, Potent Poison and Gum Ghost can actually be used effectively now in both modes, thanks to the new buffs it got in Season 4, and Shinobi Disco is definitely going to need that same treatment. Before I get into that, though, we need to talk about the Shinobi Disco, of course, itself. Shinobi Disco is an AoE ninjutsu that causes anyone caught in the radius of it to dance uncontrollably. Yes, this ninjutsu also works on players in the air and will somehow make them dance in mid-air without falling to the ground, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Of course, following this performance with Shinobi Disco, the user can beat opponents into E-pones just by KOing them. And honestly, that's all it kind of does. So you're thinking, well, that sounds fun and fair, right? Well, let me tell you why you should not be using this ninjutsu in its current state. For starters, it has a very minimal range, which at most I've only seen like 3 or 4 people ever caught by it, and you'd think an ultimate like this would have more range, right? No. No, it doesn't. And to make matters worse, to add to the range issue of the Shinobi Disco, the activation hitbox for the Shinobi Disco starts on top of the player who activated it and slowly spreads outwards. And I mean slowly. That's the key word there. Not once has anybody surprised any player with this gum ninjutsu at point blank range, and that's because the AoE, of course, on the Shinobi Disco, as I mentioned, not only does it have a very slow moving range and not a lot of range, but it doesn't come out until your character actually pulls out the DJ table, which also takes a full second to activate anyways. It makes it stupid. It makes this ninjutsu really stupidly easy to avoid. Not to mention as well that the Shinobi Disco, the person using the disco, cannot do anything until the DJ table is gone. Oh, no, but that is not the worst of it. You see, after using the Shinobi Disco, you can hit your opponent once. That's right. The moment you hit an opponent that is caught in the dance animation, they can S-burst or S blast if they so choose, forcing you to then win a parry situation or get blasted away before you can even secure an Ippon. So what happens if you don't win the parry? Well, that's too bad. You kind of just wasted your ninjutsu. Do you see why this is a problem? Not only does Shinobi Disco have a slow startup and a slow-moving, short-ranged AoE, but players can parry out of it? Honestly, for Battle Royale specifically, this is a horror ninjutsu, and it definitely is going to need some adjustments as it moves forward into the seasons. I will give Shinobi Disco this, though. I feel like if you pair this ninjutsu off specifically in team battles with a trick ball weapon, your teammates can take advantage of your opponent's inability to do anything by either stealing a free drone or, of course, getting a free Ippon setup with the Beyond the Gum ability that we all know the trick balls have. But honestly, that's the only thing I can say that is positive about the Shinobi Disco. In its current state, it's too situational, and it's best if you just didn't use it until they buff it. And as I said, of course, it really just should not be used in its current state. However, there is one saving grace that makes me forget all about the awful Shinobi Disco ninjutsu, and that is the special on the scrap katanas, the Froggy Block. I love this big little guy. Froggy Block, unlike most specials in the game, is actually used more as a utility tool rather than a combo extender, and it honestly really changes up how you play the scrap katana class of weapon. It allows you to play not only defensively and protect drones, but you can also protect yourself while setting up for some deadly wall shooter shots if you so choose. On top of that, the Froggy Block also has two separate inputs that can be used for varying situations. With a simple press of the Y button, you will put a Froggy Block directly in front of you, effectively creating a wall. However, if you input a back or wide attack with the Froggy Block, the block will be summoned on your closest targeted opponent, which is super, super nice. This block, of course, is summoned closer or on top of your opponent in an attempt, of course, to hit them. What's great about these inputs, though, is that, as I said, they can already be used for varying situations. You can almost always find a use for Froggy Block in any situation. There is something to note, though, about Froggy Block, and that is specifically the Froggy Block when used, no matter what map you're on, will always face in the exact same direction. For those who don't know, the Froggy Blocks are basically based on a grid-like system in each map, meaning the spots they will appear relative to the player are set and cannot be changed even while going towards the top or the bottom of the map in terms of elevation, as well as moving forward and backwards. Not being able to rotate the Froggy Block based on the direction the player is facing was likely due to a game restriction, which is why the Froggy Blocks appear on a grid-like system. Other than that, though, the Froggy Block is a great mobility tool, allowing you to reset your jumps by landing either on the side or the top of the Froggy Block as well. And it does have some minimal use in combos, but we will be getting to that soon. For now, we need to discuss the abilities, of course, of the Scrap Katana, which, oddly enough, both benefit the Froggy Block as well. The first ability is known as Bumpy Box, which, can I just say, is an adorable name for an adorable special. Bumpy Box, as it implies, affects the Froggy Block in a rather interesting way by increasing the damage it does when opponents are hit by it. This damage stacks based on how many opponents you've defeated, so it makes the block a better blocker by doing more damage. For comparison, I'm going to put a couple images on the screen for you guys right now. The left image is the Froggy Block when placed with 0 opponents KO'd, and yes, this does work in the training range. So the left image is a Froggy Block with no additional KOs, and on the right side, of course, is an image with 10 additional KOs, so you can see the slight increase of damage the Froggy Block gets. As you can see probably from the image, the Froggy Block damage increase is very minor. It adds probably only about 5 damage to an opponent per hit for opponent KO'd, so don't expect to go on a rampage just by making people smack into your frog-shaped Froggy Block wall. Of course, as for the second ability on the Froggy Block, we have Unstoppable, which is the big weapon exclusive ability for the Scrap Katanas. And this one is honestly nice and straightforward. It heals you every time you use a Froggy Block. Nice. It heals about 15% of the user's HP with each Froggy Block use, which honestly isn't bad at all. This nice health boost is enough to keep you alive in some fights against other players, or even survive a few more hits, of course, than you normally would in, like, say you have it like a third engagement, like you're super low after a second, you use that Froggy Block, and you might be able to survive a couple hits from that third engagement. So, honestly, the abilities specifically benefiting Froggy Block, I think, are really nice. Adding a little bit of additional damage, which can help in some ending combos, and of course having that little ability to heal while also protecting yourself with Unstoppable. Really nice abilities. I think the abilities benefit the Froggy Block really well, and of course the weapon very well on top of that. But that will just about cover it for the weapon's abilities, so let's move on to the other scrap katana kit, the Chewing V. I never thought I would see the day where I would get to say, hey, wanna watch me beat up this ninja with a guitar? Dreams really do come true, comment section. But, of course, much like the Scrap Saber, there's no need for us to go over the specials or abilities of the Chewing V, as they are the exact same as on the Scrap Saber. So instead, once again, we have to take a look at the other gum kit the Chewing V has, starting, of course, with the Gum Launcher. Gum Launcher is the most standard projectile in Ninjala. It is a normal shot with homing that tracks onto your opponents over a certain distance. The homing on the Gum Launcher is not as strong as other gum shots with homing abilities such as the Gum Balloon, but it can still track opponents a decent bit. Having Gum Launcher on the Chewing V is also a pretty scary idea because, of course, of the Froggy Block. By combining your Gum Launcher with the Wall Shooter Shinobi card and the Froggy Block, you can actually bind opponents with a very effective rate, making it probably one of the scariest weapons to go up against currently, just based on this kit. As for, of course, the ninjutsu, we have the Piercing Mixer, which can I just say, it just sticks to the weapons theme so well. You're definitely going to make some music when you drop the mixtape on your opponents with Piercing Mixer. Piercing Mixer, as the name implies, pierces all, owns all. It can go through any wall, any drone, and any player, and still keep going. It is a very strong ninjutsu at mid-range and should be used at this range more times than anything. The Mixer also has the ability to cancel gum shots that are coming for you, provided they aren't close enough to actually hit you. Not only that, but it does a respectable amount of damage and usually keeps players moving to try and avoid it at all costs. You have absolute full control while using the Mixer, being able to freely aim it as you please, and at anything you please. But be careful, because if you get hit from anything while the Piercing Mixer is active, it will automatically cancel your Mixer, making it effectively useless. Another thing I would also like to bring up with Piercing Mixer is that it does have travel time, meaning from the start of the activation, it will take a moment for it to reach the target you are aiming at, so bear this in mind when you are trying to aim at someone who is literally halfway across the map. But other than that, that is just going to about cover it for the gum kits, so now it's time to move on to some combos. Now, for this specific section of the video, I'm going to let you know now that I am actually going to be using both the Scrap Saber and the Chewing V in this combo showcase, meaning that some combos are going to be able to work with one of the weapons, but not the other. So be on the lookout for that throughout this combo section. To make it easier for everybody who's watching the video, I'll be marking those combos respectively with either SS for Scrap Saber or CV for the Chewing V. However, before we get into the combos, as always, we have to talk about the weapon's basic attacks. As I already stated in the video, these Scrap Katanas, of course, are classified as heavy, meaning their combo routes are mainly set due to there being no change in the animation between attacks. Of course, starting off, we have the normal attack, which is a heavy swing downwards, and they can be linked, of course, into one another pretty easily, like all other standard normals in the game. Now, if you look carefully at the Scrap Saber attacks or the Chewing V attacks, you'll notice that the stop sign or guitar pick that are attached to the weapon actually detaches partially from the weapon for a brief moment, which slightly increases the range of your attacks. Keep that in mind though, because in an actual match, the game tends to forget about that extra range. However, you can cross that bridge when you get to it, but for now, we can move on to the back attack. The back attack, or as I like to call it, the left-right attack, is a backhanded swing with your weapon. It has respectable range, and like all other katana-type weapons, it does indeed get the chase-down mechanic. Something to note, but 2 back attacks are also enough to destroy any small drone as well at any point during a match. However, despite this power that the back attack has, there is a slight issue I would like to talk about in the, specifically for the back attack. You see, online, connecting with a back 1 into a normal 2 is not consistent at all. Not consistent at all. The normal attack that follows the back attack, usually at its peak range, will miss 9 out of 10 times online. And that's mainly because the normal attack specifically does not get any tracking, and online your opponent just kind of falls. They'll end up like falling in a spinning animation, and because there's no homing, the swing actually swings right above them, and instead your opponent falls just below the strike. However, that specific combo route is more consistent at closer ranges, so make sure if you engage any opponent with a back attack, you are closer to your opponent to get that follow-up. However, there is a tool in the Scrap Katana's arsenal that allows you to bring opponents closer to you, and that, of course, is the wide attack. For the Scrap Katanas, the wide attack detaches the main base of the weapon, specifically from the stop sign or the guitar pick, and encircles you in an AoE before bursting and pulling anyone caught by this AoE burst towards you for a free follow-up. Of course, I would like to bring up the fact that the range on this attack is slightly bigger than one diagonal square away from an opponent on a map like WNA. As you can see, there is a square between Lucy and I right now, so if I do the wide attack, you will notice it hits here. Any distance further from that, and you are going to miss. So do be aware that while it does have some decent AoE range, you are not going to be constantly hitting people unless you are approximately one square away. Like if I were to go back here, it's going to miss. So, yeah. Another thing to note is, of course, the wide attack is the slowest attack that the Scrap Katanas have, but oddly enough, this is the tool that you will still be utilizing the most in combos while playing the Scrap Katanas. Being able to pull any opponent closer to you is huge, and it can allow for some nasty combo setups depending on your playstyle. So, there's not really anything special other than that to talk about with the weapon's basic attacks. I'm not even actually going to bring up the break attack here. So this time around, we can actually move right, of course, into our combo section. Wait a minute. Before I start showing off the combos, I almost forgot. I need to add a disclaimer here. I just wanted to let you know that your results on some of these combos may vary based on your opponent's actions following some of the combo strings, meaning some of these combos will not always work. On top of that, for some of these combos, you will need the Shinobi cards, Stealing Hyena, and Wall Shooter, both with the gum damage up assist codes. So please keep that in mind. Now, with that being said, we can actually get to some of the combos. So, the first combo is, of course, a pretty standard gameplay loop for the Scrap Katanas. Usually for starting any combo, you will either start with a wide attack or a normal attack. And what this does is it guarantees the best consistency on these combos, as well as making the weapon, of course, a fun experience. So the first combo is going to be as follows. So for this combo, you're going to start with a normal attack, followed by your wide attack or your downward ZR, followed by another standard ZR swing. Then you're going to follow up with a back attack, and you will also need to add a second back attack or left-right attack to KO a hammer. Of course, this combo utilizes the drag in from the Scrap Katana's wide attack to make sure that the ending of this combo connects. You might also notice that the back attack on the Scrap Katana specifically does an absolute boatload of damage, which makes it a great combo ender. You'll find that we'll be using the wide attack a lot over the course of the combos, like I said previously, but we will also be using the back attack as a lot of combo enders as well. Of course, as usual, as I stated, you will need that extra back attack if you are using this combo specifically on a sound hammer. This combo will still KO normal hammers, but it will not KO a sound hammer. You're going to have to add one more back attack into the chain. So, next on the list, we have our first instance of a bind combo for the Scrap Saber. And it is Scrap Saber specific. It utilizes the gum laser right at the tail end of this combo to finish your opponent with an E-pwn. With a big weapon, this combo also becomes even easier to land because of the additional extra gum, the third gum laser, which then hits your opponent in a V pattern, making the bind super easy. However, it can be done with a small weapon. It just takes a lot of practice because it's 2 straight moving lasers, and you're gonna have to hit them both. So, for now, here's the combo. You're gonna start with the same exact loop as we just did our base string. You're gonna start with a normal ZR into a downward ZR, so your wide attack once again. Following that, you are going to then go into a back attack, jump cancel out of that back attack, fire your gum shot off, and then finish with another left-right back attack. So you can see why the big weapon version of this combo is a little bit easier. Having 3 lasers over that bigger area is a lot easier to connect than 2 straight moving lasers that both have to hit your opponent directly at the same time. And aiming that, those 2 lasers is very tricky. As I said, gum laser is a very high skill gum shoot. I'd also like to note though that while this combo I said is Scrap Saber specific, it will work on the Chewing V, but you do need a big gum bubble in order to get the bind at the end of the combo. Our third combo here is going to be Chewing V specific, and it's the first combo of ours that's actually going to utilize the Froggy Block's ability to act as a wall while enhancing our gum shot. It is important to note that this combo cannot be done with the gum laser, because when the gum shot of this combo comes out, the camera is actually facing away from your opponent when you use the gum shoot. This combo specifically works on Chewing V because of the extra homing that the gum launcher gets. So the combo is going to be as follows. Much like everything we have done so far, what you are going to do is you're of course going to start with a standard ZR strike. Then you are going to be going into your wide attack, your downward ZR once again. Following that, you are going to input a downward direction Froggy Block, and what this does is it puts the Froggy Block directly on the position of your opponent, sending them flying, and they are able to be hit by it there as well. Following that, you are actually going to then dash forward with the L button to land on the Froggy Block. You are then, of course, going to use your gum shot, and then you're going to finish them off with a back attack, your left-right attack, and if of course they are a sound hammer, you do need to add that extra ZR, but this combo is super fun, so let's take a look at it. This combo, honestly, this combo is just plain fun if you can get it to land. Now, the reason I say if you can get it to land is because after the Froggy Block, your opponents do indeed have some time to move. However, you will catch them with your gum shot as long as they don't immediately jump and guard. If they do anything else, maybe except boost away, I haven't tried players boosting away from this yet, but if they do anything else besides jump and guard or potentially gum boost away, you're going to catch them with this bind. This is also a very specifically tight window on both ends, more specifically on the user's end rather than on your opponent's end. So at the end of the day, this combo comes down to whoever has the faster reaction time. It's a very important note, but if the final back attack as well whiffs, following that, the back normal, which I said has some consistency issues online already, you can always replace that final back attack with another downward ZR into ZR, which is actually a guaranteed connection at all times. Being able to pull your opponent in closer and then hitting them with any attack works every time. So for the next combo, we're actually going to do something very similar to the last combo, but we're going to change up the order it's done in to allow the gum laser specifically not to be used. I'm going to be using the Chewing V this time for this combo, but I'm happy to inform you that this combo will work with both weapons if used properly. So it is a combo that can be performed by both Scrap Katanas, and it's honestly pretty cool. So this time around, what we're going to do is we are going to start, of course, with a wide attack, your downward ZR. Then you are going to do that guaranteed follow-up, of course, of ZR. You're going to do the exact same input then, following that, of a downward input Froggy Block. But now here's where the combo changes up a little bit. you are going to then backdash. You are going to hit a downward inputting dash to move backwards. After that, you are going to hopefully land on the wall, follow that up, of course, with your gum shot, and then finish with that same standard string, the left-right ZR, and then that extra ZR if, of course, there is a hammer. Now, I love this combo because it is just insulting. If your opponent's in the right spot, your opponent just gets smacked back onto the froggy block that you placed. If not, they go flying just over the froggy block into some other point in the map and into space. Now, as I said, what's interesting about this combo is that it's the first combo I found that effectively uses a backdash. The reason this combo uses a backdash is so you can, of course, land back onto the block and onto the wall. Before the backdash, though, specifically the reason this combo works is because before the backdash, Ninjala actually thinks you're inside the froggy block. So by backdashing, it's actually, the game is pushing your momentum forwards and therefore out of the block onto the wall for a wall shot. However, if you are too slow with this backdash input, you're actually pushed out of the back of the block, ruining the combo. So keep this in mind. It is a very fast reaction combo on your end. In all honesty, though, what I find really cool about these last two combos, if they work, by dashing again, specifically after the combo finisher, you're actually put right back onto the froggy block, kind of like this. So you can set up more gum shots, and because you have the wall shooter possible stealing hyena setup that I mentioned that you are going to have for some of these combos to work, it's a scary proposition because imagine if you have big weapon. You're going to get 15% of your health back. You're going to be on the wall with stealing a hyena and a big gum shot. You're going to be able to basically bind anybody you see at that point if the gum shot hits. However, I still want to mention that this combo that I just showed still has the same issue as the last combo. So please make sure to change up your combos after the froggy block. Your opponents do have time to react. So change up your combos to make yourself less predictable. Overall, with this entire combo string, I would say, despite some of the consistency issues with some of the attacks that the scrap katanas have, they're extremely fun weapons with incredible combo potential. They're also pretty funny combo routes where you can just KO your opponent with the froggy block itself. But I figured I'd let you all figure those ones out for yourself. What is more important than that, though, is talking about the equipment and weaknesses, of course, of the Scrap Saber and the Chewing V. So, of course, in the next section, that is exactly what we are going to discuss. Now, oddly enough, with these scrap katanas, there is absolutely a bunch of potential with how you set up these Shinobi cards. As many players know, the Shinobi cards give us more of a reason to use certain weapons over others, and of course the Shinobi cards are also based on, of course, how you want to play the game. So if you're interested in picking up these scrap katanas, here's what I recommend. For starters, the most important Shinobi card for the scrap katanas to keep in mind is Wall Shooter, and I should tell you now that my setup down here that you guys see at the bottom of the screen is literally the exact setup I use for my Chewing V and Scrap Saber. So if you guys really want, this is the setup for that. Unfortunately, you do need all 4 Shinobi card slots to make this work. This is the extra one, though, so we're going to be talking about these two mainly. But the most important card to be running, of course, here is Wall Shooter, as you can see on the screen right now, with assist code 1 and assist code 2. What assist code 1, of course, decreases, I should say, your cooldown time when for your gum shot when you're standing on the walls. And, of course, the second assist code for Wall Shooter increases the gum damage you deal when using a wall shot from walls. Of course, this card will allow Scrap Katana players to apply constant pressure to your opponents because you'll always have the threat of the froggy block by your side for a simple wall shot pressure. And I really like this. To pair this off nicely as a Scrap Katana user, of course, we're also going to be wanting to run Stealing Hyena, which honestly is a card that is used a lot with at least assist code number 3, which is the increased gum damage assist code on players with lower health. This card and assist code, of course, will allow you to pick up E-Pones on players with low health with a few simple gum shots, especially if you're going to use these with a small weapon off the wall. But on top of that, it also stacks, as I already said, with Wall Shooter, making your setup incredibly strong. Interestingly enough, though, because this weapon has some decently slow attacks, it doesn't hurt to run the new quick respawn Shinobi card. With honestly any assist code, I find respawning with more health to be fun. I heard respawning with the ninjutsu assist code, this second one, is absolutely bonkers and ridiculous, so I might, you know, be testing this out over the course of like the next week or so as I continue to enjoy beating people up with a guitar in free matches. But it's such a good card. It allows you to decide when you want to respawn. So if you just want to jump back into the fight and continue applying pressure to your opponents with the froggy block, honestly, quick respawn is a pretty good tool to use on Chewing V because of this. Honestly, I think quick respawn is honestly pretty slept on right now. So there's definitely some strategy to using quick respawn. But man, when you have as powerful of the kit as you do on the Scrap Saber and Chewing V, on the Scrap Katanas, I mean, these things are just absolutely ridiculous. Other than that, you know, I'm going to say starting dash, of course, using the Shinobi card starting dash. So I'm not going to say it this time. Damn it, I just did. Well, that's unfortunate. Of course, there are other Shinobi cards you can run based on your playstyle. Honestly, this is a pretty nice setup for Chewing V. As for potential weapon weaknesses, I think the biggest one that comes to mind right off the bat, and I've mentioned it already, is that consistency on its back to normal strikes. And of course, that slow speed of the wide attack startup. Personally, I think the wide attack just needs a bit more range, mainly because it feels a bit lackluster on a weapon that can detach part of itself to become a massive grouping tool for KO setups. But honestly, that's just my opinion in terms of the weapon weaknesses. It is important to remember as well that when using the wide attack to start a combo, it can be interrupted before you finish the animation of the wide attack. So that is an important note to bring as well up with the wide attack, unless you follow up with a normal into wide attack, which is now consistent because the only thing your opponents can actually do is jump out of it before the wide attack hits them. The combo is much more consistent. It did not when Season 4 started, but it is now. So hitting any attack into... hitting any normal into wide and vice versa, wide into normal, is guaranteed to be consistent now. I don't trust the back attacks, though, specifically on this weapon, because they can knock your opponent kind of far away. Other than that, in terms of things you definitely want to practice for using this weapon, I definitely say practice using the gum laser. I cannot tell you how many times I messed up that one combo in the combo section just to use the small weapon gum laser. I hit a single laser probably about 5 times, and twice I got the E-pone out of it. It is a very tricky gum laser to use. Gum laser, it really is not forgiving unless you have a big gum laser. But because it's the fastest gum shot in the game with insta-bind capabilities, it's a super nice utility to know how to use. And of course, the last tip I can give in terms of the equipment wrap-up here is just practice with these weapons, because you're not going to get any better with these weapons if you don't end up practicing with them. So I think that's an extremely important tool. Obviously, with any game you play, practice does indeed make perfect. So I definitely recommend practicing with both the weapons. If you're not comfortable with trying to go in and practice Gum Laser, I would recommend starting with the Chewing V over the Scrap Saber itself. So enjoy beating people up with a guitar like I have. It is fun. But yeah, that's about all I can say about the katanas. So other than that, I really have kind of nothing to say here. So, of course, with that, I hope you all enjoyed this guide with the, for the Scrap Katanas in Ninjala. Let me know if you think I missed anything in the comments section below, and let me know what your favorite, favorite part of the video was. Let's get some community interaction going on with this video. I'd like to hear what your favorite part of this video is as well. Of course, as always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you're hitting that like button as well as hitting that subscribe button for more content like this on the channel. It would mean a ton to me if you could help my channel reach 5,000 subs by the end of the year. That is such a huge goal. I know it's such a giant leap, but I believe, like I said, in the power of this community. I believe in the power of the Ninjala community. I believe in the power of the CGA community. And I definitely think this is possible to do. But of course, if you want to see more Ninjala and Nintendo content on the channel, you should just hit the like and subscribe button anyway, as I do a ton of these videos like all the time. But of course, I am all out of time for today. So before I go, I do have to give a quick shout out to my donors over there on Patreon, MickeyPhorGens, Thomas, and Styleno, for their continued support to the channel. And as always, until then, This is CIJ Man 777, signing off. Stay safe, everybody.